Best.Podcast.Ever is sponsored by the Gertzberg Law Firm, a full-service, award-winning business law firm in Cleveland and Chagrin Falls that appreciates what matters most to businesses: practical advice and cost-effective results. We understand your business because our team has the unique perspective of having real-world business experience themselves. Learn more at gertzberglaw.com. While you're there, be sure to check out Cover My Six, a proprietary legal audit that will identify, target, and minimize your business's exposure to lawsuits and government investigations. Go to covermysix.com to learn how you can prevent a lawsuit before it starts. Enjoy the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're about to listen to the best podcast ever recorded.
There's 3 words to describe your job as a CEO. I don't know if you know what they are. Plan, direct, and control.
Hey folks, Alex Gertzberg here. Thanks for joining me on Best Podcast Ever. I appreciate it. I'm glad you are here. In this one, I had a really good conversation with my friends Adam Sonnhalter and Jack Mencini. I really believe in coaching. I've had some form of business coach or personal coach for years. I don't know how. Well, I do know where I'd be without it. I mean, I'd be much slower or more behind than we are today. Look, if you're a business owner, you got to get out of your own head. You got to be able to have someone talk to you that is not your subordinate about direction, about planning, about ego. And a really good business coach does that. I go 4 times a year to Chicago to meet with my coaching group. We have phone calls throughout the year. There's a lot of interaction there. And on top of that, I've got folks around here that I rely on. I don't really know how you can run a business without having a good coach and a good peer group. And Adam and Jack do that. So they are the owners and coaches and partners in Maximum Value Partners, MVP. You're going to want to go to MaximumVP.com to learn about their business, or you can just listen to this podcast and learn a lot about their business there. They bring decades of experience to their coaching business. More importantly, they bring decades of experience in business to coaching and to their methodology. They are, between the two of them, past or present owners of over 20 companies. And they've got it down to a science, man. I mean, there's a process that they follow. They call it the 7 keys to success. We talk about them here. And I'm a believer. I love what they have to say. I love what they draw from in terms of books and methods and processes. We talk about Michael Gerber and the E-Myth, which is one of the foundational books about business management that's out there. I've gotten so much value from just that one book, E-Myth. I recommend it to a lot of people. They also have their own podcast. It's called Dirty Secrets of Small Business. It airs every Wednesday from 7:30 to 8:30 on WINT Radio. That's 101.5 FM. So every Wednesday at 7:30, check that out. 101.5 FM, Dirty Secrets of Small Business. And if you go to dirtysecretsofsmallbusiness.com, you can check out their prior episodes, including the one where they interviewed this cat named Alex Gertzberg about Cover My Six. That was sometime in December, I want to say. And that was a really great conversation. So with that, let me stop talking to you and start talking to them. Enjoy this episode. I know I did. Hey folks, Thanks for tuning in to Best Podcast Ever. We are sitting here at the Gertzberg Law Firm studios in tropical Cleveland, Ohio, with Adam Sonnhalter and Jack Mencini. Jack, Adam, welcome.
Glad to be here.
Good to be here again. Appreciate it.
Yeah. You guys are. I was describing you to someone as my podcast envy targets, because I was at I did your podcast, and you had this really neat studio, and you had like a guy behind a bulletproof glass, and I was like, man,
The bulletproof is what's important.
Yeah. And you had like classic rock intros and outros, and so I had podcast envy because of you guys, but that's okay. We'll be just fine here at Best Podcast Ever. So Adam and Jack are business coaches, and as you all just heard in the intro here, they've been doing this for a long time. 2003, Maximum Value Partners started in 2003. Is that right?
That's about right, Adam, been that long, right?
Yeah.
Adam's our historian.
Who are we talking to?
He's our historian.
Yeah, well, and aside from being business coaches, you guys ran your own companies, which is great to hear, because when I talk to a business coach who's never run their own company, I automatically start getting like red flags. Like I want to talk to people who have walked the walk before they're talking the talk. So let's talk about that first. So
kind of like Freddie Kitchens, huh?
Yeah.
Sort of like that.
Yeah, right?
Never ran anything before.
Yeah. I want to know that the guy that's giving me advice on how to run my business has failed a lot. I want to know that they've felt the stresses that I've felt, the isolation that you feel when you're a founder, right? There's an emotional spectrum that we, the three of us, have gone through that our employees will never have.
Right.
And so I like having that shared experience with my advisors. So talk about that. And Jack, I want you to go first. If my crack research department here has done her job correctly, like 16 companies,
right,
before you became a coach.
No, I would say some of it was simultaneous, but for the most part.
Yeah, and at least some of these had some successful exits, right?
Yes.
I mean, you weren't starting them and shutting them down and starting a new one, right?
No, they were, there were several startups and turnarounds. I don't know if you know what a secured party sale is.
I do.
Okay.
But
the audience might not
for the
know.
benefit of the non-lawyers in the room and in the
what
audience.
is a secured party sale?
Yeah.
A bank, Smiley, lends you money to buy $1 million piece of equipment for your company. And everyone's happy and high-fiving, and things are moving along. And a couple months later, that $1 million loan is all of a sudden not being paid.
Right.
Can't be, because they're losing money and issues with the company or whatever they are. So eventually the bank takes you through a process, which not me, but the person who can't pay the loan, and it ends up in the workout department of the bank. That's what they call it. It's a pretty well kept secret, the workout departments. They have different names for them at different banks. They don't advertise them because bankers never really make bad loans, right?
So the workout department isn't like a bunch of guys like Schwarzenegger working out.
Let's go 5 more. Come on, you got it. Let's go.
Just the opposite, you know, suits and ties,
Right.
and the guys who are, neurotic, and no, I shouldn't be that mean to them. They're pretty good guys. But it ends up over there in the workout department, and somebody working in the workout department will now establish a relationship with the person who can't pay on that $1 million loan.
Right.
And they being the workout guys, will basically write this loan off for the bank, and it's incumbent on them to collect as much money as possible from you, the defaulter on the $1 million loan.
Right.
Now, people like me come along, and it's been a while. It's been several years since I've done my last one. But I have a good relationship, or did have a good relationship when I was way more active with the workout department. And so they would ask me if I'd be interested in a particular loan. And yeah, in 5 cases, the answer was yes. And it was a variety of companies, mostly in the manufacturing area. But one was a little armature winder. Armatures go into electric motors.
Okay.
Two were metalworking companies. One featured, they made floating boat docks. Another one made a variety of metalworking types of products, all custom made. Another one was a railroad track construction company. And another one was a large forging company, which made these big steel shafts that went into Kobe steel out in Lorraine to make steel.
So these are manufacturing companies that were distressed, and the bank brought you in to turn them around.
Correct.
Do I have that right?
Correct.
You did turn them around.
It was more than just a turnaround. It was, a secured party sale. I actually set up a company to buy these assets.
Right.
And the way that happened is the owners on Friday night, this is all after it was, planned. The owners on a Friday night would flip the keys to the bank. Monday morning, the bank would flip the keys to me.
Right.
And in a secured party sale, at least the ones I participated in, I didn't have to put money into these at all.
Yeah.
Plus, I even got working capital loans that were not guaranteed. Nothing was guaranteed, and no checks by me were written.
That's a pretty good deal.
It's
nice,
a good deal.
Yeah,
it's nice. And if you know what you're doing, which it's always questionable whether you do, right?
Yeah.
It can work out pretty well.
So you just described 5 of them.
Right.
The other 11 were also manufacturing companies?
No, there were a variety of things. One was in fact, the only one that really bombed out was a company that we made films for the 50th anniversary of D-Day. So it goes back a little bit.
Huh. Interesting.
This in fact, that was one of my first little ventures like this.
You're a filmmaker too,
Well,
an attempted
I was.
filmmaker.
The filmmaker was a guy who talked my friend into this deal, and he the filmmaker would require X bucks. He's going to travel overseas. Obviously, we had to finance all his operations, and it wasn't extensive to make these. If you remember, not CDs. What's the little ones in the box?
VHS?
Yeah.
Or Betamax?
Betas.
Yeah, though you know what I'm
Something.
talking about.
Yeah.
So he had those with a lot of different pre-recording items on there, and we would interview the veteran, and it would be superimposed into the movie, and he'd have a nice replica or a nice memento from his war days and his visit over to the D-Day.
Oh, I see. So you were making the movie for the veteran.
Correct.
Not for the public.
And we would sell those. And
that didn't work out, huh?
No, it didn't work out at all. He absconded with it. He went to Greece. That was the last we heard of him. And I don't think D-Day involved Greece too much. But, and we couldn't find him. He disappeared. He quit reporting. And as far as I know, he never came back to the States.
Gotcha.
So he nailed our investment. And I looked at my friend and said, that's how it goes, huh? So...
Well, but
that was the only one I lost.
I mean, that's a good track record. 15 of 16
It is a good track
companies.
record. I decided to pay attention after that one. Yeah. If this is the way it goes, I don't have that kind of money to...
Adam, how about you?
I only have a few. Again, I'm a few years younger than Jack. He's got about 30 years on me. But
I thought you guys were the same age.
Yeah, I know. I wear it well. That's what it is.
Moisturizer.
Right.
It's moisturizer.
That's what it is.
Especially in the cold winter times. Might have been more involved in the service-based business. I had a little evaluation company years ago, but we also did something with the software business for fundraising, where we helped. We're still doing this now. Help folks take what people going door to door to sell stuff, whether it be chocolates, candies, cookies, those kind of things, and putting it online. And while that might sound like a pretty non-unique idea today, 15 years ago, it was a pretty big deal, especially for the fundraising companies to kind of get the stuff and to be able to take it and put it online and expand where they're going with stuff. Also, from their standpoint, a big part of it is the cash flow. All right, so if I have a bunch of schools that are out doing this stuff, they're out getting stuff, they're making sales. I have no idea what the sales look like. The money comes in months later, right? Versus online, hey, I know what's being sold. I know the money's in my bank account today or tomorrow. It's ready to kind of go. So it's a big deal for them. It took them so long, though, even to start to kind of shift over. And we saw a very interesting shift in that business model where there are a lot of families that are involved in the fundraising business. And you'd see a lot of mom and dads kind of going down. And all of a sudden, now they're bringing their son or daughter along to the show, and all of a sudden they're starting to shift. And to get them just to take a little bit of technology took some time to kind of do, but it's been a fascinating business to help them just, again, make things run better, but also expand what they're doing and be able to kind of sell more. So that software business is still going on now, doing very well. It's in the year, I think it's 13.
And you're still running it?
Yeah, well, still involved. Jack's involved with it as well. We have 2 other partners involved in that business. So it's often what happens. We got involved with a little app business too. It's been kind of slow to go. It's for a cash flow app. One of the things we coach on is cash flow and how important it is. And all the owners listening, I'm sure you can appreciate cash is king, obviously. But there are a few tools to kind of track it. Whether you're using something like a QuickBooks or any other accounting software, often a lot of big things are missing in that cash flow, right? Things like rent or payroll, some big items are often missing because they aren't necessarily in your accounts payable. So you're not necessarily getting a good view of stuff, nor is your forecast in there often, right? So it's hard for an owner to get a good view unless they're looking at their bank accounts, where it stands today. Even then, you can't see stuff. So the idea of trying to make it relatively simple to kind of make that happen. So we have a guy we've been working with for a while. It's been, like I said, it's been on the slow moving, but it was something that we talked about for a number of years, and the guy came to us with the idea, and we were kind of looking at each other, Jack and I, like, are we being punked right now? Is somebody filming this? Like we were just having this discussion, a few months ago, and this guy came and talked about it. It's a guy we've known for a number of years. So we got involved with that, and obviously Maxim Valley Partners is going on 17 years now.
My first jury trial was a non-compete case between 2 companies that did school fundraisers.
Okay.
And I never realized, this was about 20 years ago, I never realized how cutthroat that business is, right? So your kids, when they're selling, magazines and stuff, and they're trying to sell a whole bunch so they get like a bike or a watch or whatever.
Right.
They raise a ton of money for their school, and then the company that creates these fundraisers keeps 40-50% of it. So it's a ton of money, and the competition for the salespeople is cutthroat.
Sure.
And so, like, I couldn't believe it. Like, I mean, I remember selling magazines door to door for this, and then you get this peek behind the curtain, and you're like, oh man, this is a giant industry, and all these kids. It's a school fundraiser. They're raising money for the schools and they are making, but there is, it is intense, that competition.
Sure. There's a lot of things going on behind that curtain, as you're talking about, Alex, right? Yeah. A lot of moving parts are happening, and it's hard to get those schools to change, right? So if you've been in there and you're the rep for that school, you've been the rep of the school for the last 15 years. Well, even if you're a complete jerk or you're screwing stuff up, it's hard for me to say goodbye to you because you're the guy that we know. So unless there's some other change maybe in the administration, it's often hard to get those guys out. So they are very valuable because they build that the relationship of business. Yeah. And they're kind of there. It's like, hey, we're in again. Let's get started. They go right at the beginning of the year, and they kind of roll right through it. So yeah, it's a tough business.
You're right on the big percentages of holdback that they take. I mean, because the nonprofit organization raising the money isn't, they aren't going to get involved in the mechanics of this stuff. It's like found money to them. So they don't negotiate hard to say, look, you take 9 or you take 10% of this and give us 90. Although that's a trend with the better run companies.
Right.
But, a lot of profit grabbing.
Yeah. So I'm not going to make you guys both go through the rest of your resumes, but I know that's not the only company that you've started and operated, Adam. And I don't think we went through the rest of yours.
No, we didn't.
Either, Jack. So let's leave it at those. Unless there's some company that you really want to talk about, I want to get into the coaching. Right. Okay. So how did you two meet and when?
Well, that goes back a few decades. So growing up, I spent most of my high school and college years caddying during the summers.
Really? Where did you caddy?
Out in Elyria Country Club.
Okay.
And so great job. And as I look back at my growing up, my career, whatever it might be, most of the jobs I had were entrepreneurish jobs. Whether it be caddying. I used to set up and take down for bingo during the week, like on Wednesday and Friday nights at a local bingo hall. Like I had a lot of more entrepreneurial stuff. I like to kind of do it on my own pace and kind of have some upside to it versus going to work at like some restaurant or something like that. It's very different.
Yeah. When you're a kid, though, you call it hustling.
Hustling, right? Well, beauty about caddying, you get cash in your pocket every day, which can be a good thing. Or not necessarily a good thing, but So I used to caddy a long time ago, Alex, and Jack used to golf a long time ago, and he hasn't golfed in a while. But I used to caddy for Jack.
Is that right? That's how you guys met?
That's how we first met.
Oh, that's interesting.
And he got to know my dad. Was part of that as well, and they stayed connected for a bit. And I went to school in Michigan. I was in New York City for about 10 years, and I was coming back to the Cleveland area. I was trying to get connected with some people who had known but hadn't worked here. And so Jack's one of those guys. And so he and I had dinner a few times, kind of get caught up with what was kind of going on. And at that point, Jack and a couple other guys were just kind of getting Maximum Value Partners kind of going. They were kind of just we're messing around with this little thing, and they were joking about kind of being semi-retired, right? Semi-retired. What does that mean? If we're semi-anything, it means we're kind of half-assed and stuff, right? So he said, well, we're helping people do a couple things. We're helping them sell companies, kind of very small companies, which is what I've been doing in my time in New York, helping people buy and sell companies and raise money. And he said, then we're also helping people out. And I was like, helping people out? So, what do you mean, right? He said, well, it's not consulting, because we're not going in there and doing a project and kind of handing it over to people. So we're going in there and we're training, we're teaching the owners how to do things better, right? I said, okay. He goes, I don't know what to call it. I said, we're helping them out. I said, all right. So we're starting to do some of this work and helping people out and doing some of the buying and selling thing. And as you might imagine, whenever you're going to sell something, one of the first questions you have is, well, what's this thing worth, right? And so we're doing some valuation assignments, and we're on one. It was this little screen printing company. A husband and wife team that had it. And long story short, she mentioned during one of our meetings, said, hey, have you guys ever read this book called The E-Myth? Right? And for those of you who haven't read it, it's E-Myth. And she said, I said, we hadn't heard of it. I hadn't heard of it. So, but curious why you ask about it. She said, well, you guys come down and give us all kinds of great guidance and advice, ways to improve this and do that. And so you sound just like this guy, Michael Gerber, who wrote this book called The E-Myth. I think you guys would enjoy reading it. So Jack and I started reading the book, and light bulbs just started going off for us, reading about Sarah and what she was doing baking her pies. And as we discovered that E-Myth is a business coaching company. And we said, okay, hey, wait a minute, what's this business coaching thing about? And so we started investigating the market at that point. Again, you got to keep in mind, this is probably 2003, 2004 timeframe. And what we discovered at that point, you had a lot of folks calling themselves business coaches, but they were also, hey, I'm a life coach and a career coach and a marriage coach. And they could put whatever they wanted to put in front of the word coach and say, hey, I can do these things. But we were not seeing many people that had business experience that were business coaches. And Jack and I are scratching our bald heads going, how are they helping people, right? So you can ask questions, you're blue in the face, that's great, but eventually you got to kind of give people some guidance or direction, kind of point them in the right direction. So we got excited about it. We actually knew what the helping was called. Now, hey, it's business coaching, and we got all excited about it. We had a couple other partners at that point, and we shared the book with them and the idea, and they said, they weren't as excited or enthused about it as Jack and I were. So we wound up buying them out of the business at a pretty early stage. And so that's how we kind of got reconnected and kind of got into the coaching thing. So we fell into it. So we're out there just helping the owners. And, we're doing it early on. We had no process or system. You own a company, we come in, hey, Alex, what do you think you need? With full confidence that we could help out, but not necessarily knowing what the pathway looked like, right? And so after doing that for a little while, we started to realize that we needed to do a little better job of kind of putting all the stuff we had, kind of put it through a little sieve, so to speak, and say, let's break it down to where we can help people. And
you need a process.
And kind of let it out in a way that's going to make it repeatable and make it work very, very well. So we evolved that in the first several years. We came to what we call our 7 keys to success. I think every coaching company has some version of that. Ours is based on our experience of both big companies as well as small companies, and trying to focus on the key things that are going to work to help make you successful, which we define as growing sustainable profits.
All right, so put a pin in that, because we're going to delve into those 7 keys in a few minutes. But way more importantly, how is Jack's golf game?
I don't golf anymore, so that gives a hint of how my game is. No, I was not built for golf. I'm totally convinced.
But you are apparently, from, again, what our crack research department uncovered about you, is that you're a rugby fan.
Yes, very much so.
Do you know any other rugby fans, Adam?
No, I don't even know any other rugby fans.
I know why he's a rugby fan. There's a different story. I'll answer your question this way. He was a great guy to caddy for.
Those are 2 completely different athletic activities.
That's right.
Those are on the 2 opposite
so.
ends of the spectrum. So it's 17 years ago. Is that right? 17 years ago?
Yeah.
For us.
Yeah, 2003.
Yeah. And you guys decided to make a go of it. How many, if you had to take a guess, or maybe you know exactly, approximately how many companies have you counseled, advised?
Let us ponder that for a minute.
It's probably approaching 200 here in the.
Is that right? That many? Holy crap!
In terms of officially counseling them, yeah. I mean,
wow.
Some are shorter term. Most of our clients tend to be longer term, but yeah, there's been some shorter term gigs. We kind of come in and help people out, and then obviously, beyond that, we're counseling people, everybody we meet. But in terms of actual engagements, it's approaching 200.
And your sweet spot, as I understand it, is like smaller companies, 1 to 25 employees.
That's correct. And we talk about employees because people are usually comfortable talking about that. Right? If you go to small business folks and say, what did your sales last year? They go, why do you want to know? Cross their arms, like, well, who are you, right?
Right.
Well, how many employees do you have? I got 17. They're all a pain in my butt. Okay, so they'll talk about employees, but it gives us a sense of kind of where they are and the sophistication level in terms of what's there. Usually at that point, it's the owner, and they may have 1 or 2 key people, but it's usually the owner, and everything's kind of coming to him or her often at that point.
Yeah, and I didn't want to jump off that last topic. The E-Myth changed my life.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how it started your journey into coaching, because the premise, as you guys know, and our audience may or may not, is that everyone thinks that that they are a born entrepreneur. Everyone who goes into business thinks that they have a natural talent to be an entrepreneur, but that's a myth. Right. That's where E-Myth comes from. It's the entrepreneurial myth.
Correct.
And so I remember reading it. I want to say it had to have been, I mean, this firm is 7 years old. So it was probably around 10 years ago. And I remember reading it, and it was just light bulbs going off everywhere, like spoke to me and to the sort of arrogance that I think I had at that time about how I could just figure this out. And boy, if there's a mistake that you could possibly make in running a business, I've made it probably 2 or 3 times. The framework of that book, though, is that so long as you have good systems, right? So long as, including a system for processing your mistakes, right? That's what business is all about. It's about creating frameworks and structures and systems, processes, instead of just winging it, right? And so from that, I gather, is where you guys came up with your 7 keys to success. Those, to me, I'll let you, if you wouldn't mind just going through a very high level description. I want to drill down into a couple of them. Okay. There's a selfish reason that I've got you guys here too. Okay. But the point is that these are very structural concepts. Right. They create an architecture around a business person, and puts planning into these. They're not, silos is probably not the right word, but into these categories, these buckets that make the billion things that you do in a business much more manageable.
Right.
That's right. You take all the elements of what running a business is about and distill them down, in our case, into seven keys. And if you master these keys, and it takes a while, and if you stay with it, your company will be successful. And we define that as growing sustainable profits. You can't miss. And if your market somehow dries up, you have the knowledge to basically turn the ship to another direction and get out of that market. All right? But the 7 keys in a nutshell, well, a 7-key nutshell, right? First one is have a vision. If you're going anywhere in this world, if you're really intent on going, you've committed, you have to have some sense of where you're going. So this is a 1-page, not an academia exercise, not trying to impress whoever the funder might be with a 50-page document. It's a couple of pages max, this vision. And it's broad, and it's 10 years from now, because you can do anything you want in 10 years. I'll give you a high level. I'm starting to talk too much. Basically, this vision is going to drive your efforts. Do you want to be on a world stage? Do you want to be on a stage in Northeast Ohio? Where do you want to be 10 years from now? Wake up, pinch yourself, and say, here I am. So we want this document, a couple pages, in present tense. Where are you 10 years from now? Are you big? Are you small? How many employees do you have? Are you, all over the world? Where are you? What's technology going to do? How's that going to affect you? just have a little blurt about that. It gives a sense. And you're going to be able to drive your company, get people excited with that, and that's why we have it. That's the first one. The second one, and we don't understand even to this day how people can run companies without understanding their numbers. The second one is called a profit plan, not a budget. Budgets, we were trying to ban that word from the lexicon. It's terrible. It's a terrible word. It's Charles Dickens like. It's stodgy. You can't get people to really care too much about it without really beating them over the head as the manager or owner of the company. So it's nothing more than forecasting your sales and your expenses for the first year. So if the vision is 10 years from now, here's where I want to be: $100 million company, a $2 million company a year, whatever your sales are going to be. We're going to start basically with this profit plan for the first year. It's the first leg of your 10-year journey. And you're going to have detail, and you're going to learn how to run the company with the numbers with this.
So the profit plan is a 1-year plan.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, keep
going.
going.
It's like an annual budget, if you will.
Got it.
Dirty word.
Right.
Okay. So the next thing, the top line of that profit plan is a marketing plan. Who's going to buy this stuff? How are you going to sell it? How are you going to mobilize the efforts and the expenses, the resources to get these sales that you're forecasting? What's the plan? Do you have one? These are all pretty much equally important. Okay, so the marketing plan is the third item. The fourth one is, okay, we got all this fancy planning going on. Who's going to do the work? What's that look like? So the fourth one is the organization plan. Start with the traditional boxes, the guy at the top and the gal who's the COO, or whatever title we're going to use. Ultimately, will come out with that expression of the organization. All the work that's being done today, plus all the work that has to be done tomorrow, you're going to identify it with the people who are doing that work. So that's an important document. The next one is the leadership. Starting with what kind of an organization do you want? In today's world, a very inclusionary, participative workforce is necessary, sharing information, being transparent, giving people opportunities and goals that they've never had before, making them better. That the A kind of company and culture you want, and B, opportunities for careers, really opportunities, not a lot of BS. So that's important, to say the least. The next one is cash flow. Cash flow is the lifeblood, as we all know, especially with smaller companies. They have to be on top of this. We create a plan that basically shows 90 days by day where you're going to be positive cash. Got to be. You orchestrate it so it will be. And if you can't do it, we have some serious problems with the company. And we got to start to address those. So if you can get a 90-day cash flow where every day you're going to be positive cash, that's a big sleep generator here. You can feel pretty much at ease because you can solve almost any problem in 90 days. And last but not least is presenting. If you're going to present your company, how do you do it? Do you do it like a bozo? Or do you get up in front of the crowd or group or whatever and whoever is getting presented to? Do you do it with confidence? Do you do it with rational thought? Do you do it, depending on the audience, with the appropriate language? How do you present that company as being a winner and getting people excited to either work with you as a vendor, as an employee, as an investor, as a banker, whoever it might be? How do you carry yourself in that presentation? Well, the way you do it is to take these other key points that you just went through, and you make your presentation out of those 7 keys. And it works if you stay with it.
I've got a ton of questions.
Fire away.
First, before digging into each one, I think that one of the really unique things that business coaches do is take, and Michael Gerber did this really well, you guys are obviously doing this really well, is take something that is complex and simplify it.
Oh, boy,
right?
that's, yes.
Create order out of chaos, right?
Yep.
You guys did that with 7 key.
Yeah, we didn't start with 7. We started with a bunch, and we've kind of we narrowed it down.
You brought it down to 7.
Yeah, it took time. You're right.
Yeah. So I think that anyone who is able to do that well has a lot of value to give to other people. So it sounds like you've done that at least 200 times. How did you come up with these 7?
Well, we're looking back at, like Jack said, in terms of different things that we've had from success that we've seen in our own personal careers, as well as the companies we've run, as well as the companies we've been involved in. So what are the really key items to focus on? Because where it's coming from was a couple things. One is, you might imagine, being a coach. Early on, we used to joke we needed to bring a couch and a box of tissues with us, right? Because often we have some discussions, we'd be way off tangents in terms of not talking about business stuff for a while, right? And so you got to make sure we're focused about the business side of things, right? And they said, well, what things should you be focusing on? As an owner, we joke too. We said, look, if you don't get to the owner by 10 o'clock in the morning, their day's done. Somebody's already got to them at that point and set whatever the direction for the day is going to be, right? So how do you know, as an owner, what to focus on? And there's always a course during the course of the week where there'll be a few hours that frees up somehow, right? A meeting gets canceled. All of a sudden, you find yourself with a couple hours of time. What do you do with that time? And so how do we help to answer that question for the owners? What things should they be working on? Because these are the things that are really important, but they're often not urgent because they aren't necessarily needed now. But if you aren't doing them now, they'll become urgent eventually. And so we were able to kind of narrow it down. We had probably a dozen or 15 of them. We kind of started combining massage. It took about I'd say probably a year to kind of get it kind of honed down and trying it out and putting it out there. I think we went from 8 to 7 was the last thing we kind of did to get it down. But it's been that way for a good 10, 12 years now. We had to kind of pin down and say, here are the key things. And what it enables us to do, from our standpoint, is when we start with the client, so look, here are the 7 things we're talking about. Where are you on all 7 of those things? Because as an owner, whether you know it or not, you're working on all these things. You may not be doing it consciously or as diligently as you want, but which of those 7 need the most love and attention? Because I know for a fact we can't work on all 7 of them, but we can work on probably 2 or 3 of them at a time. But which ones need the most love and attention? It helps us get very focused very quickly, so we're able to get some of those very quick wins with our clients. And that's a big thing for us because all of our stuff is month to month. And we make sure that, hey, we got to make sure we keep delivering value, for one, and that our clients stay coachable. And this 7 keys has helped us to do that, to be able to make sure also that when we're communicating, I'm sure you probably see this all the time, dealing with law, all the knowledge you have, how do you take that knowledge you've got from studying law and practicing law for the last couple decades and give it to somebody who doesn't understand law at all? You got to be able to kind of break it down so you're talking the same language. The 7 keys has done that well for us in order to make us be able to communicate pretty well, because we used to do it differently. When we first started doing this stuff, come back, think about more of the corporate background. Hey, we're assuming, it's always bad, where we're assuming that people had things in place. And so we'd have a meeting with the prospect. Things would go well. I said, okay, let's meet again. But before our next meeting, we'd like you to pull together a few things for us. And we'd send them a little note to follow up with like 11 things that we wanted to pull together. Things like their profit plan and their articles of incorporation and their organization chart. All this stuff we thought was basic stuff for them, just kind of either pulling off the shelf or pulling out a file somewhere and sending to us, right? And what would happen, Alex, is that we'd get crickets, right? Crickets. We had good rapport. Like, did we misread stuff? And we said, what was happening was we found the owners were embarrassed, right? They're embarrassed that either A, they didn't have this stuff, or B, they didn't know what half the stuff was. So also we're making them feel bad. And so they didn't want to be around. So we said, let's stop making it so difficult for people. When we talk about the 7 keys, we talk to owners about it, much like as we talk to you about it, you get it, you see, because you're seeing your business in that 7 keys, which is exactly what we want. So it's a framework that we can customize for every one of our clients to make sure it fits what they need to be done.
Right.
But it keeps us all on the same page pretty easily.
How long does it take you to get through at least the first draft of a 7 key plan? How long does it take for you to, like, in terms of hours, say, get through all 7 keys with a client?
Get it completed, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, I assume these 7 concepts have like output, right, on paper, right? Some common understanding. The 10-year vision, you said, is a couple pages max. The marketing plan, the organizational plan, all these things. Do they end up in a book or in software, or where's the output?
Yes.
Yeah, the combination. We clients like to do things electronically as well as physically, and it's not as clear as, hey, we start at key 1 and go through key 7, right? It's a little more messy than that, right? It helps to frame what we're working on, make sure we know what we're working on. So we may spend months or years working on only a couple of them, right?
Okay.
Well, the other ones are kind of put aside. If all of a sudden we're having some real people issues, I got people, can't retain employees, things are kind of going on, or a key person may have left. Okay, I got to figure that out. If I got a cash flow problem, I don't care what else you got going on in your business. We got to figure out the cash flow issues. We'll delve in with both feet to make sure that starts to happen. So it's usually a little more lumpy than that. Because again, it's we're trying to make sure that we're responding what the clients need, what the business needs. But it'll be a deeper delve. Not only just getting the plan together, but helping them through the how part of it. In terms of how do you go execute these things.
Do you ever get? And I'm going to use myself as an example because I struggled with cash flow forecasting. I struggled with profit plans myself, and at some point, I decided to get a CFO, and I just thought it was just not a good use of my time.
Okay.
Right? Do you have clients like me who just now? Granted, I didn't have a coach walking me through creating my own cash flow plan, but do you have clients who just say, Jack, Adam, when I think about cash flow forecasting, I want to hang myself.
Often,
right?
Alex, often we hear that.
Yeah. So do you just say, hey, listen, this is part, how do you deal with those guys that just don't feel confident or don't feel like they're built or wired for that kind of work?
There's a time, and it's subjective, but there's a time in every one of our situations where you're either going to take to the cash flow. We'll just use cash flow as the example. You're going to take to wanting to get involved in that, or you're not. If not, we'll recommend strongly that you bring in a controller, you bring in a numbers person. And usually that's usually a couple years into the deal. It takes a while for them to realize it. They'll start out with trying to do the vision. We got one client's been working on his vision for 5 years. 5 years. He can't make up his mind what he wants to do when he grows up. So you're working on your vision. While you're doing that, let's start putting the profit plan together.
Right.
First line of that is sales. So what are you going to sell next year? What are you going to sell next year? You don't have to tell me that, but what are you going to sell next year? $1 million, $2 million, whatever, 500,000, whatever. I don't care what the number is. How are you going to get that? Crickets.
Right.
More often than not. They don't know. Okay, well, we're going to teach you how to put a marketing plan together. We have to have a pretty good sense of how we're going to spend our money and what programs and what expectations do we have. And, there are ways to start to dig into historical data, start to put rational numbers together, ideas, assumptions, all taking time. We don't demand that our clients work 40 hours a week on us. If we get a couple hours, that's good.
Well, and that gets back to another Michael Gerber quote where he talks about working on, I think that's him who said on the business versus in the business, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, my own observation is that just by picking up the phone and calling you guys, they're already one step ahead. They're already in the mindset of I need to work on the business and not in the business. And Jack and Adam are going to help me do that. So just by picking up the phone and calling you, they're already in the right frame of mind. And then getting back to my question about how much time, what do you recommend is the appropriate amount of time for someone to work on the business, or maybe more to the point with you, have you guys working with them on the business? What's a good amount of time from your perspective?
So from a starting standpoint, I think a couple hours a week, like Jack is saying, is where it usually starts. And so we structure our meetings with our clients. We meet them either every week or every couple of weeks. That's kind of the rhythm. So we get that down. That's often a big first step. Your point, it's like they're used to being in and not necessarily controlling their days, what's kind of going on. So let's get something structured. We're also saying, hey, every week or a couple of weeks, we're going to see each other for an hour or two, just starting there. And we're going to have some homework, for lack of a better term, in between to get stuff happening. So it's going to be, try to get, we get a couple hours. And usually, again, like I said, a couple hours seems to appear during the course of a week. It magically does. And it's like, okay, well, let's make sure that what we talked about is going to be at the top of your list of things that you're going to start to work on to make sure it's happening. And I want to go back and answer your other question, just to give you a simple story from a cash flow standpoint. Because a big part of what we focus on is the how part, which is we don't just say we'll go put together a cash flow forecast. We'll see you next week. We'll sit down with you, help you kind of put it through. We have templates we'll show. We had a client years ago who took over the company. It was a transition after a parent had passed away, and they were aware things weren't going as well as they thought. But they learned they're about $250,000 in debt. And so the two kids that worked in the business for 30 plus years, they said, hey, we can't really go get a job somewhere else. We're very emotionally attached to the company. So they're going to do whatever they could to make sure that the company was going to survive. So the owner wasn't very fast with numbers. So look, we understand cash was the biggest issue. Let's figure out this thing. So she said, hey, will you meet me on Saturday morning? I said, sure. So she and I drove through a 2-foot blizzard on a Saturday morning to sit down at a Panera about 3 hours to go through literally the cash flow forecast for the next 90 days. To start putting all the information in to show her, here's how you kind of do this stuff. But holding her hand along the way to make sure they know what to do. I think one of the things we found, Alex, is one of the challenges. People have a sense of what they want to do, but it's the how part that people aren't telling them. They're telling them how to go about doing these things, and often they overcomplicate things. You mentioned before about keeping things simple. We try really hard to make things simple, and that was one of the best compliments we got. We were presenting at the Ohio Landscape Association a couple months ago, talking about numbers and putting together forecasts. And somebody came up after us afterwards and said, look, I said, you made this thing so simple to understand. I've never been something like this before. I can actually understand. Because it's a complex topic. You guys made it very simple for me to understand. That's like music to our ears, Alex, to say, okay, we've taken something very complex, say we can now make it to where you can digest it and understand it, and then put it into your business, which is fantastic.
What do you guys think? And I want to get an answer from each of you, because I don't know if it's going to be the same or not. So Jack, you're younger, so I'm going to ask you first, okay?
Good enough. All right.
What is the easiest, most low-hanging fruit of the 7 keys, or maybe it's something within them, but just in your coaching, the most bang for your buck that a business owner can employ in order to get the most traction, the most mileage, the most problem avoidance?
The quickest would be having a good sense of the market to get some sales. The best thing, and it takes longer, if we're talking what's fast versus what's best, the profit plan. Profit plan addresses everything that goes on in that company, everything. And if you have good assumptions made for that forecast, that profit plan, you basically have identified stuff in that process that says, holy crap, I can reduce this, or I can negotiate this away, or how come this asset is here? I never knew I had it, It's the discovery that basically provides the biggest bang for the buck.
Got it.
On that.
Adam? Profit plan is the one that came to mind because it makes you touch on everything else, touch on the other 7 keys, but everything that goes on in your organization flows through that profit plan. So you got to ask all those questions. And so from our standpoint, it gives us the biggest bang for the buck because we're going to touch every part of the organization, from the customers to the employees to the vendors to everybody else who's involved in that business.
Do you ever encounter emotional impasses with your clients, either because the owners aren't agreeing on something and they feel really strongly about their positions and they're digging their heels in, or maybe it's a family-owned business, or maybe it's just people who are just unwilling to see their blind spots? I mean, do you ever see those kinds of emotional impasses?
We'll take our little bag of tricks and we'll stamp on your forehead, uncoachable.
Uncoachable. There you go.
It moves to that point. We got one going on right now. I got a couple. No, just one going on right now.
Oh, I want to hear about these guys. What is uncoachable? How has uncoachable manifested with you guys?
Well, I think what happens is, especially with family businesses, you get a certain relationship that's there. So whether it be siblings, whether it be parent-child, whether it be cousins, there's a certain way that you kind of know each other. And as having that knowledge, you know what buttons to push, and you have a certain way of relating. And so it's very easy to say, hey, leave whatever personal stuff is at the door when you come in the morning, and you're playing a different role in here. That's easy to say, but it's often very, very difficult to do. So we'll see situations where, again, we had, whether it be the current situation like he's talking about, we'll have these discussions, things are going to go along fine, then all of a sudden you fly off the handle.
Yeah.
Well, wait, what happened? Like, why are you yelling at him? What just happened? Well, nothing to do with what we were talking about here today. It's going back 6, 8, 10 years ago, something happened, or whatever it might be. The reason we make sure things are month to month. We had a client for about 4 years, helped out a lot to grow, more than doubled the company, was doing very, very well. And then the owner was professing a vision that the owner wanted to see happen. And the trouble was there was a sibling and a long-term employee that were going to hold them back from achieving that vision. And we'd worked on everything else at that point to kind of work around that issue. It's often we'll come back to that. We have other things we can kind of work on, right? Well, we'd worked on everything else, and we came back and okay, here we are. So what are we doing about this stuff? And it's like, hey, if you want to get there, you aren't getting there with these two people you're bringing along. And so we came to the point where, look, emotional, got into this. Look, I can't do this. I want to make sure, dealing with the sibling on holidays. And okay, well, look, I know you want to do that, but if you don't handle this now, that's going to blow up too, right? So after several months of going back and forth, I said, hey, look, we're going to agree to disagree. It's been a fantastic 4 years. Let's celebrate all the progress we've made. We're going to have to part ways now. And there was tears, right? I mean, because it's like breaking up with somebody, right? It's like, hey, it's been great, but we've gotten to where we are. You kind of go. It doesn't mean that we're going to be right. You're going to be right. Who knows? But our experience shows us that, hey, what you're talking about trying to do, you can't get there from here, right? And so
so this is you guys parting ways with the client,
yeah.
Correct?
Because you just knew that the direction they wanted to go was not going to succeed.
Yeah,
That's right.
And it happens a lot. The emotion is probably the biggest part of that, right?
Yeah.
And it's whenever we get bounced, we usually get bounced when we start sticking ourselves in between family. Okay, and Jack and I coach all our clients together, and we've done that since early on because we've got different ages, different styles, different experience, and we can relate with people and say things. So being a 76-year-old man, he can say things that I can't say as a 46-year-old man, right? And vice versa. And we'll connect with people in different ways.
It's funny the power of age like that.
Boy, I don't, I feel like if that's true, Jack, I talk like a 76-year-old man all the time.
It's good if you can get away with it. The younger you do it, But it enables us to connect with people on, in different ways and be able to kind of break it down and see stuff. But also, again, we have different tricks we try. And one of our keys that we've learned over the years is if we're talking about a client a lot between the meetings, usually it's not a good sign. Because we're trying to figure out ways. We're trying to figure out ways. What can we do this? And again, we're trying to do it different. Let's try this. Let's try that. Okay. Eventually, we say, okay, well, we've tried all the bags or all the tricks in our bag. Okay. Well, we can't get through it. It's really you're digging your heels in. You aren't going to change. Okay. Well, it's been fun. Let's kind of move on.
Yeah. What has helped us? So we have weekly leadership meetings here, and when we remember a few simple concepts, it works great. And the concepts that work for us are one, be really comfortable being uncomfortable, right? Be comfortable saying uncomfortable things to each other, right? Just don't do it just to piss somebody off. Right. Do it say what you need to say, and remember that it's all for the good of the company. It's not for everyone. Checks their own interests, their agendas, and their egos at the door. When we remember that, emotions still arise, especially with lawyers. I mean, we were the type A ego, egomaniacs, the worst ones on the planet. But when we remember that we are here for one unified goal, and that is the best interests of the company as opposed to our own, that seems to work well. But remembering that, and there's always spin. Well, I think what I'm saying is what's best for the company. Well, I think what I'm saying is, but
it's a good focus point, to say the least. Yeah.
You can usually, in my experience, parse out the personal interests from the company's best interests.
Yeah, when you ask that question, we say it takes as much emotion out as you can. Say what's best for the organization. Yeah. Now the question is, do you have the chutzpah to do what it takes now? Because you know what the answer is. Now, are you going to do it or not? Right?
Yeah,
that's what it comes down to.
Talk about when somebody's personal habits are things that you need to discuss with them, in addition to the 7 keys, in addition to the structures that you help them set up in the business. Do you coach your clients on mindset, on personal habits, on
I would say I'm laughing not because it just happens, right? And I'm thinking of a newer client. It's been about a year we've got. This is a 2nd generation company in the plumbing business, and had, as you might imagine, a blue collar bring up. The parents came over from Europe and their first generation here, kind of stuff. And so a lot of softer things that are there. Just something as simple as, hey, did you tell that guy a good job? Did you give him a pat in the back? What for? What's he need a pat in the back? I never got a pat in the back. It's like
Yeah.
Right? So we'll have these kind of discussions, and okay, so they'll come up usually pretty early on, and we'll know right away either this person's going to take to the coaching or they aren't. If they push back hard, like versus go, oh, I mean that's not okay. Like, well, how else should I approach it? Tell me why. They'll discuss it.
Smile and like, come on, Alex. You know you shouldn't be acting like that. And there'll be this soft pushback, and then a sheepish grin because they know we're right, and we'll guide them through that. And come on, soften up. That's not the way to do it. And
it's so funny. I think so. When you said Eastern European, right?
Right.
Okay, so I can speak very from a lot of personal experience there. So I was born in near Russia, Moldova, and my. I would say everyone in my dad's generation, and including folks that I worked for, throughout my life, clients including, very everything is very functional, right? If that wall is there just to hold up that ceiling, you don't need paintings on it, right? It's like everything just serves its purpose, and it's all very unemotional, sterile, stoic. And I see that constantly. So I put myself into your client's sentiment pretty easily. But you're right. You have to, if you're going I mean, look, you're not in Russia, right? You're in America, and in America, saying, having those soft skills is really important.
Right. Well, when Jack's talking about our fifth key leadership, you mentioned a lot about culture. We didn't talk about, in terms of what we do with the owner, right? We start out with a tool called DISC, which I think you're familiar with.
Yeah.
It's behavior assessment. We're all in the 4 quadrants. So to help them understand their natural style, first of all, to understand, hey, guess what? No matter where you are, everybody else is not like you, right? So let's understand that and understand what's kind of going on, because we're working a lot on them and their style. So we have a number of clients that are engineers, IT folks. As you might imagine with them, this interpersonal stuff isn't their strong suit, but they like the typing of stuff and emails, and they'll try this manage by email, right? And you may have seen this or experienced it with some clients. And so we'll be very critical of that in terms of trying to help them understand, well, here's why you don't do it that way, right? Here's how you got to, you have to have that discussion. Don't type it in an email or text it to somebody. Sit down with somebody for 2 minutes and have the discussion. Here's what it goes like. We'll role play it and kind of go through with them. So a lot of those things that may seem like we're overkilling, like why you got, it's very important from their mentality in terms of how they look at stuff and be able to think about stuff.
Yeah.
And so, we're getting into their heads very quickly to understand what's kind of going on. Again, we're trying to teach how to be CEO. That's what we're talking about. And the job of the CEO is very, very simple. There's 3 words to describe your job as a CEO. I don't know if you know what they are. Any idea?
I'm guessing it's not the same 3 that you would,
That's
you would
okay.
pick.
No.
Lead, manage, and execute. I don't know.
Okay, those are good. Those are 3 good ones.
Those are the first 3 that came to mind. What's your 3?
Our 3 are plan, direct, and control.
Okay.
In that order, right? So picture you as the owner, as the boss. If you ask no other question to your team of what's the plan, asking that very simple question, almost every day you can ask that question, right? We have a daily touch. Hey, what's the plan for today? Now, if you have a plan, sounds good. Hey, great, Alex. Let me know how I can help you with that. Otherwise, we'll talk tomorrow. If you have no plan, okay, Alex, let's get a plan together. Let's see what we should get done today. But the plan. So if I have a plan, we can start to kind of do stuff, right? The direction comes down with the plan. Okay, I have the plan in place. Okay, the direction. Think of yourself as a conductor of the orchestra. Here I am up front, doing a little more. I need a little more from the violins over here, from the drums over here, whatever it might be. Okay, from the horns here. You're directing the activities. Make sure things are happening. And then the control comes through a combination of meetings and reporting. And so meetings, we know, get bad names, and rightfully so, because most meetings are awful.
Yeah.
They aren't. There's no agenda, or if there is one that's not held to, they don't stay on time. They
Checking
become
their phones.
they become monologues. They become all of a sudden, there's 10 of us in this room. Those 2 are there having a private discussion.
Right.
They're all kinds of things. But well-run meetings, create and do things well, and having reporting. Coming back to one of Jack's earlier comments about numbers, being able to see your business through the numbers and reports and having a pulse on that stuff. So we say, to come back to, you mentioned the Gerber in terms of working on versus in the business, that's our definition of working on, is when you're doing the plan, direct, control. And many of our clients, when we first meet them, are doing very little to none of that often. And so we're helping them to learn how to kind of set time aside to be able to do those kind of things. Because once they start to do it, they start to see how much fun it is. They just didn't know what they didn't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I'm sure you guys do this. I need constant positive reinforcement, positive feedback that I'm on the right track because of my own insecurity, right? But I think it's the same insecurity that every business owner has. I need, like most of my clients, all of whom are business owners, they need to see that what I'm doing is working for me, right? So the guidance that you guys give on proper meetings and on those habits, do you talk about, well, how's that working out for you? Mm-hmm. Right.
Oh,
you got it. Right.
Yeah. A big part of what we do is that we'll take notes during, take notes here. We're taking notes during our meetings to make sure when because I can't remember what we talked about, next week I'll forget, but I'll have notes to kind of, hey, how's that going? And we'll reach out in between. Often they'll reach out between for us to see, well, hey, I know we talked about this, yesterday or last week, but what's that look like? So we'll talk. Yeah. So we make sure we're available. That's a big thing for our clients is we're available 24/7. Now, I might not answer the phone at 2 a.m. I might. It depends on the day, right? But we'll get back to it, and we're there. The loneliness that you're describing is very true. So again, to focus on the right things, make sure am I doing the right things? If not, I could be doing other things that I could be spending my time on.
Do you guys know who Dan Sullivan is?
I know the name. Yeah, the author.
We might have talked about it. Yeah. Well, he's also a business coach, and he has this quote. It's so simple. But it was responsible for a lot of light bulbs that went off for me. And the quote is, "An entrepreneur's greatest skill is confidence, or confidence is the entrepreneur's greatest skill." That to me was such an eye opener because of what I said earlier about how often when you're an entrepreneur, you're isolated, you're on a ledge, and you're experiencing failure and you're experiencing stress that nobody else in your organization can experience. I might have said this on your podcast. The feeling of, boy, I hope I make payroll, right? That is a singular feeling of stress that is unlike anything else, right? If I miss payroll right now, all of these people, their checks are going to bounce. They're going to feel shame when they walk into their homes. They're going to have their own problems with their kids' tuitions and with their rent, their mortgage, whatever, right? And so I'm setting up a question here, I promise.
It's okay.
Along the lines of the last question I asked about personal habits, right? To me, one of the best things that I can do as a lawyer, and what I imagine you can do as a business coach, is help your clients, as I help my clients, feel a sense of confidence, right? Talk about if that is something that you do help them with, and if so, how?
Okay.
Well, first of all, it is something we're aware of. If somebody's down, you can tell after working with them for a while where they are at. Are they up or down? Do they need a little boost? Do they need a pat on the back? Do they need a push? So we're well aware of that. And basically, how do you do it? We like to do a lot of role playing. It breaks the malaise you're in for whatever reason you're in there. Okay, how about presenting something? Either there's a meeting coming up, there's an issue that's just taking over and putting them down in the dumps. Start talking about it. And then you got to sort of pull them along. You might get pissed off a little bit, but so be it. They're finally starting to talk about it. And when they talk about it, we can add value, and they in turn can add value themselves when they start to talk about it. And it can change right before our eyes. You go from a negative mood to a positive mood. So yeah, that's a big deal.
One of the things that's often overlooked in our 7 keys, but I think answers this question, is that 7th key of presenting. Okay, it's often overlooked because as an owner, you rarely have to present yourself to people.
Yeah,
people are doing stuff for you and everything else, and so as they're having to present themselves and do things, you sort of see the confidence start to kind of build, that they know what's kind of going on. So we see that, but yeah, we all have our doubts. So the phrase comes back, fake it till you make it kind of thing. What's
Right.
kind of going on? And so yeah, they'll come to our meetings, and again, they say stuff in our meetings that they don't say anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
Because it's but they know it's a safe space to come talk about. Okay, and it's a good to acknowledge. It's okay. Well, is that real or not real? Okay,
Yeah.
it's not real. Okay, let's move beyond it. If it is real, okay, let's figure it out.
Right.
How do we get you through that? Because if it's there and they're talking about we got to address it. We can't just push it aside because it's for them to bring it up. It's been circling around for a while at that point before it comes out.
Yeah, I think it's so important. I mean, and the reason I like that quote in particular is because of its components. It is in fact a skill, like a muscle that you can work, like you can work out. You can get more confident, and it is important. If not, I think it's one of the most important skills, as Dan Sullivan said, that an entrepreneur can have, because it is one of those. It's like one of those gateways to everything else. If you lack confidence, then
That's right.
It's going to affect how you talk to people, how you lead, how you plan, how you present, right? You've got to enter. There's there's some other quote about how you have to enter battle with audacity. I think it was Patton's 3 keys to winning any war: audacity, audacity, audacity. You've got to bring everything you've got to that moment, and if you don't, your employees will see it, your customers will see it. So I'm glad you guys are talking about it. I think that anyone who doesn't talk about it is missing an important part of entrepreneurialism. Okay, we are going to take a very short break, and when we come back, we are going to stress you guys out with the lightning round questions.
Nice.
Okay, so if you want to take a nap, take a break,
Oh, don't say that.
take some chocolate, get your energy levels up. Folks, we will be right back. Hey folks, Alex Gertzberg here. I'm CEO of the Gertzberg Law Firm and Cover My Six, and I wanted to share with you something we figured out long ago. The biggest value lawyers can give their clients is not getting them out of trouble. It's helping them avoid emergencies before they blow up. That's what Cover My Six is all about. To help you see why we're so confident in this audit, we're offering a no-cost, no-obligation business vulnerability assessment. My business lawyers will meet with you in person and go over your customer contracts, your employee handbooks, and other key legal documents, and identify any legal minefields they see. We'll also give you guidance on how to stop those minefields from destroying your business. We know lawsuits cost businesses far more than money, but we also know that most of them are entirely preventable, and we know how to stop them before they start. Go to covermysix.com to see if you qualify and sign up today. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of the show. We are back. You guys ready for the lightning round?
We're ready.
Okay.
Alex, we're ready.
All right. I will defer to you on who answers first, but I would like to hear 2 answers, and not from the same person, for each lightning round question. Okay, here we go. Other than Michael Gerber and the Bible, what is the book whose words you apply the most in your life on a day-to-day basis?
Jim Collins.
Jim Collins?
Yeah.
It actually was book or author, so you anticipated the
sorry
actual.
about
No,
that.
you got it right. You got it right. Jim Collins, Good to Great, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
You can tell we spent too much time together.
Is that the same one for you?
Yeah, that's the first thing that came to mind. I was talking about this morning. I was giving somebody the analogy of the bus and the right people on the bus, wrong people off the bus, and starting to use that as it's a great metaphor. Fantastic visual to talk
I
about
gotta
that.
read that book. Did you read Built to Last also?
We did.
He did.
You like
Good
it?
to great's better. Yeah.
Wasn't there like a curse? Like didn't most of those companies in it like
Start to eventually, tank. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, again, it's based on what they did before going up that point, but yeah, things change.
But the other thing is, I don't think that did a lot of those companies fail because of the economy? Because a lot of companies failed after that, or am I crazy?
The one blanket reason. People look for a blanket reason,
know,
but there
right?
isn't one.
Yeah.
There's ebbs and flows.
Different reasons.
Companies don't have that straight line up
Right.
and never stop.
That is an oft-cited, often referenced book. I mean, it is. I've not read it, but it's on my list. If you were a professional boxer or MMA fighter, what song, album, or band would be played as you entered the ring?
This will be different. I know it'll be different for me than you, Jack. I'm hoping, but AC/DC's first release. It's a long way to the top.
Oh, that's
If you
excellent.
want to rock and roll,
I
that
like
song's awesome. Anytime you get a bagpipe electrified on a rock album,
I mean,
it's awesome. So that song, I can never listen to that song and not feel pumped up and good, Alex.
I like it.
Boy, ELO would be the
ELO?
the group. Oh yeah,
Electric Light Orchestra.
Maybe I want to take a
right.
nap and then they get pumped up for a fight. Come on, Jack. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but I can't think of one that would.
Engelbert Humperdinck?
No.
See, now I'm having trouble going to the next one because I'm imagining Jack as an MMA fighter getting into a ring to beat somebody's
He's
butt.
gonna
trying to
put
think,
the
I'm-
opponent to sleep,
I'm
calm him
thinking of
down.
that sound. Yeah.
Instead of lull him to sleep before you knock him out.
I think that from now on, every one of your engagements with your clients should start with AC/DC playing as
right.
you guys walk in the room.
I'm good with that.
All right. If you could ask one question of anyone who ever lived, who would it be and what would you ask them?
Boy.
Oh wow. Well, I mean, I have to get religious, which I'm not. But
That's okay.
I'd have to talk to Jesus and ask him if heaven is a real thing. Heaven and hell are real things.
That's a good
That's
one.
what I'd ask.
That's a solid question. Adam?
How was the play, Mr. Lincoln?
I love it. What is a habit or routine that you do on a regular basis that's giving you the most mileage?
For me, it's since the dawn of technology and all these smartphones, I'm a calendar guy. And I used to be a list guy, a to-do list guy, and I got rid of that years ago by putting stuff into my calendar. I realized if I don't put it into my calendar,
Doesn't exist.
it ain't getting done. Yeah.
I'm the exact same way.
So I found that
Yeah.
to be very, very helpful to me be able to manage everything I'm kind of doing and seeing that I can get stuff done. So using the calendar that way has been
Yeah.
key for me in personal and business life.
Boy, me, just an awareness of exercise. I love to eat, but an awareness of exercise, doing a minimum of 30 push-ups a day plus sit-ups. I got to do that no matter what.
Wow.
And without that, my energy level drops
Yeah.
significantly. So
That's a good
I'd
habit.
put that one.
Adam, you work out?
Yeah, I used to be more regular about it. Then we had about 9 or 10 years with a personal training client that we worked out with, and it was good. And I've kind of fallen off the wagon a little bit. But I'm like Jack. I'm big into push-ups and sit-ups. So
Yeah.
to me, it's the basic thing. Kind of get things kind of going, and it engages everything.
That's an easy one too, for like a hotel room or
Right.
when you're on the go. I've walked out of the courtroom because it was a long day and I'm falling asleep, and I bust out like 20 really quick, hard push-ups, and I
You're
feel like
energized again.
I feel like I get an extra half hour that way. That's probably mine too. That and meditating together, I call it part of my power hour every morning. I feel like if I don't do one of those two things, I'm off. I'm feeling off.
Well, it's amazing if we're in habits of doing stuff like you
Yeah.
mentioned, like traveling. It's so easy to get off kilter. And you often may not realize it until you're back, you get in the routine. I mean, even like with the holidays and stuff that we just came through, you get so off. You
Yeah.
get so off your routines. You're doing
Right.
this and that, seeing people. It's like that's why I think most people feel good. Like now, like, okay, I finally through all this stuff. I can get back into my routines. Now the question is whether the routines and habits are good
Right.
ones or bad ones. But at least you I think we take comfort in that as humans. So yeah, I think trying to find the ones that work and getting rid of the ones that are kind of maybe
Yeah.
holding us back.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing about it, honestly. And this goes right back to, I think, being an entrepreneur is there is, I've said this before. I think that entrepreneurs are wired differently than non-entrepreneurs in at least one way, in lots of ways, but in at least one way. And that is that we tend to take agency. We tend to be more decisive about what will happen to us and about our own futures, right? It's what also makes us largely unemployable, right? But I think that carries over and it creates a lot of opportunity If you are already leaning in that direction, if you're already a decisive, type of person who takes responsibility for their future, takes ownership, takes agency over it, then creating good habits is, they create these, like, they create scaffolding. They create these great opportunities to think better, to live longer, to have more energy. And there's habit, like, I don't know how personally at this point in my life anyway, having developed certain habits, like just getting the right amount of sleep, eating the right kind of food. I mean, I just don't think that I would be as effective in running a law firm, with 14 people here. And I feel like it would all cascade onto all of them if I wasn't operating at full capacity because of these other habits. So my point is, there are opportunities there. It's why I asked this question, because I'm always curious what other people. Entrepreneurs are already leaning towards decisive ownership of their future, and good habits are just like easy compounding factors that have these huge returns on those decisions.
Sure.
I'm going to change lightning round to meandering round, and Alex,
the philosophical Alex round. It's okay.
Alex getting on his soapbox round.
It's all right.
Okay. Ooh, gosh, I this is the one that I always in at least 2 episodes now I'm looking forward to, but I think it's also the one that is creates squeamishness. Describe a time when you had a massive personal or business failure and how you bounced back from it, if you bounced back from it.
I cannot say, honestly, that I have had a massive failure, depending on how you define a massive failure. I mentioned that little filming company because that's the only one that I lost. On 15, 16 companies that I've owned, never lost them. And I'll counsel to anyone who's our client that they don't have to lose either. You don't have to fall in love with a product. You don't have to fall in love with an idea. That's what puts people out of business or creates massive failures, held things aside. They do. If it's time to quit, if you're in love, with basic negotiation. Once I get the signal that you've crossed the line and you want this thing, I win. Okay, well, you got to fight that. You got to fight that signal. You got to fight that emotion. You can't commit like that. I mean, when you do commit, you commit because you've done your homework and your chance of winning are high. It's that easy. To me, it's that easy. If all of a sudden your revenue dried up and you're doing planning, you're doing the 7 keys, you're on top of this. It dried up because, the technology has overtaken it and it's rendered it obsolete. Well, what am I going to do? Sit and scratch on a dinosaur on a dying, trip? I'm not going to do that. I'll switch gears. I won't like it. Nobody likes that kind of thing, but why in the world hang on with the loser?
Right. The first thing kind of coming to my mind is my early on in my career, and I was on Wall Street. I was working for Bear Stearns, and when you're a young investment banker, you work lots of hours, like 120-hour weeks. You're working all-nighters, all kinds of crazy stuff. And the reason I joined Bear Stearns, I interviewed with a couple different firms, and most of them, they all wore the same white shirt and stiff collar, and they seemed very different, versus Bear Stearns were more entrepreneurish. I talked to 10 different people there. They're all very different, right? And what I learned as I got in there, they all, a lot of them got kicked out of different places because, again, they're their own people. There was a very entrepreneurish kind of group, and so we had kind of a chip on our shoulder, like, okay, like, hey, the Morgan Stanleys and the Goldman Sachs and the JP Morgans of the world, we're better than them. We're going to outwork them and be harder to them, right? So probably 6 months into this, and the group I was in was the defense group, and so Lockheed Martin and Raytheon were big clients of ours, and there's a lot of deals going on. This is in the mid-'90s. A lot of deals are happening. These big tier 1 defense guys are gobbling each other up, and so we're watching what's kind of going on, and we're seeing these news reports this one morning. They're talking about this deal's going on, and all of a sudden they're saying, well, hey, and Goldman Sachs was the advisor to Lockheed Martin on this. We're like, wait a minute, that was us. Saying keep in mind, this deal wasn't announced yet, right? The deal is happening and all this stuff. So we're young, 22, 23-year-old, excited about kind of stuff. So we call the station, right, to talk about, hey, that's not, you guys are wrong. It's not. Well, it wasn't a couple hours later. All of a sudden, we're getting phone calls from the managing director. You guys come down here, please, for a minute and talk about what's going on. So here I am, 22-year-old kid going, oh, what I just, I'm freaking out.
Right.
I'm sure the color's out of my face. I don't know what's going on. So I sit down and says, hey, did you guys call the station? He said, okay, you guys realize that the deal's okay. We appreciate your excitement and enthusiasm for that, but don't ever freaking do that again, right? It's like, okay, I can breathe now, right? I really thought I was getting fired walking in there.
Yeah,
right?
I thought that's where this story was ending.
Well, that's what I felt. I've never had that feeling since. So what it's helped me do is to help make myself a little more aware. I can be very myopic and very loyal in terms of how I kind of do stuff. So to kind of step back and think a little bit bigger picture about stuff in terms of how's this going to impact other things that are going to go on. Maybe sleep on it for as opposed to reacting. So the idea of giving a 24-hour rule, I learned that pretty early on in my career to make sure I didn't step into too many bad things.
Well, I mean, getting back to the personal habits, I mean, I still I'm trying to figure this one out, but like just creating space. If you learned at 22, if you got a really good lesson in non-reactiveness at 22, and you remembered that and practiced it, man, I'm still trying to figure that out. That's why I meditate, though. Just creating space between stimulus and reaction that's the trick. What is the metric you use to determine whether you've had a good day?
Well, as I'm thinking back my day, I always reflect. I'm a prayerful guy. I'll be praying throughout the day. But I'll reflect on the day at the end of the day. And the question I always ask myself is, how many people did I impact today?
Oh, that's
I'll go through my day. And again, it could be everything from my kids to friends to clients to people at the school, where it might be. But people, I'll go through the day trying to think about it. And did I do that? Did I do right by them? Did I put my best effort for it? Was I there for whatever they needed? So to me, I'm always looking at my impact on the people I've got in my world, and hopefully it's positive. I tend to be a very positive guy. A lot of my friends will joke with me about that. I'm coming to you because I know you're going to tell me how to look at this thing as a positive. Even though I think it's totally negative, but you're going to come and you're going to shine a ray of light on that. So I want to make sure I do that for people. They're coming to me for that. So it's an important thing to be able to do.
Yeah. Jack?
With me, if I can get into bed and fall asleep within the first minute or so, I consider that a perfect day.
I like that.
And, because if
is that unusual?
No, I
you have a lot of good days.
I do.
All right.
I really do.
But you're setting that as your bar right there. That's awesome.
Well, if
I like it.
You look at the kind of things that are going to upset you. Your business day, you've got a last-minute phone call driving into the garage, or your wife's in a mood that it is totally upsetting, or certainly nagging. Not nagging wife, but a nagging issue. And if I can go smooth sailing, have something to eat, get the news, and read, catch up on life, and have a very uneventful evening when I slither into bed, that's okay. That's a good day.
I'm glad you explained that, because I thought you were describing like insomnia. I thought what you were trying to tell me is that you don't fall asleep easily. But what you're saying is, if there aren't things weighing heavily on your mind and that are stressing you out, you had a good day.
Absolutely.
All right.
He falls asleep well. We had a good experience with a client of ours. We're years ago. It was a little bigger company. He had a private jet, right? So we're flying to different. It was a plane, it wasn't a jet, but we're flying to different locations, right? And after spending a day together, we're all a little tired, right? So the last half-hour trip, we're all sitting in that plane, we all doze off, just taking a nice little nap, a little power nap. We're all feeling pretty good. You had a good day. It's nice like that.
It is.
He doesn't have trouble sleeping very often. I haven't noticed that.
I haven't.
Sleep is an undervalued.
But I will do this too. If there's a big problem, a big issue, I'll try to get a little exposure to it before I go to bed, because your brain works very well while you're.
There's a lot of science behind that.
I agree. I find that very effective.
In fact, I think one of the experiments that I read about, or one of the studies, if you just write down a problem you're trying to solve, ask it in the form of a question. How do I solve this problem? Fill in the blank. You stand a much higher chance of coming up with an answer to that problem when you wake up than you would have if you hadn't written that down.
I believe that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of studies that have explored that, and it's something they say it's your subconscious working while you're sleeping. course, it could also be just the fact that you wrote it down and that created a thought, a synapse.
No, I wouldn't dig too deep into why, but I know
but it
does
works.
work.
It works.
It
That's the key, right?
That's
it works.
That's just no need to ask.
I don't know why the push-ups work, Alex, but the push-ups work, right?
That's right.
It makes me feel good.
All right, we're almost at the end of the lightning round. What is an embarrassing thing about yourself that only a few people know? And for extra credit, for bonus points, that nobody else knows.
Most embarrassing.
Well, I used to have a big-time stuttering problem as a kid.
Is that right?
So I used to have to go out of class and go to that white van or the the mobile home that was outside of the school, do the walk of shame for a while to learn about stuff. Not sure why. I remember right around the time of Lily Tomlin was in a movie where she got shrunk. I forget what the movie was, but it's like I was probably like 7, 8, 9 years old. Yeah, but I just remember that being very shameful and kind of trying to work through it. And I've worked through it, but it's something that's stuck with me for years. It's been
What did the Lily Tomlin movie have to do with the stutter?
I don't know. I remember being in there talking to the person. I remember just having watched that movie. It's burnt. You get those memories as a kid. That's about
random
things. Yeah, things start to connect
associations.
together, right? And maybe it was a 9 to 5. I was watching that too. It's the same kind of time frame.
Yeah.
Late 70s, early 80s time frame.
I love that you said that, Adam. How did you? How old were you when you got past it, and how did you overcome it?
I think it's something I still work on every day.
Oh, really?
One of the things, yeah. Well, I talk fast. I try to talk slower. Every time I talk, when I'm speaking, presenting, I'm on a show like this, my mind's always saying, talk slow, talk slow. So my mind, this is painfully slow for me talking right now. Because my mind's just.
But you're conscious.
fast.
You're conscious.
Yeah.
Consciously trying to talk slower.
I think that the simplest trick I learned how to do was just to breathe.
Yeah.
As dumb as that sounds, I realized when I was having trouble getting something out, I'd be holding my breath. So I'm like, let me just clear, breathe, and then all of a sudden things would often come out much more smoothly that way. But so I was trying to find those little tricks, but the breathing thing seemed to be the biggest thing to help me. Just to take a little breath, pause, and kind of go, and it seemed to work pretty well.
Oh, that's a great answer. How about you, Jack?
Boy, I'm scanning my brain here to figure out the most embarrassing. I got to go back to when I was in high school. I was a decent athlete, and I was captain of the football team and the like, and got named to the West All-Star team, and a few little honors here. I was clearly, at least in my mind, the star of the team. And at the banquet where they give an award to the most valuable player, I thought it was a shoo-in. I'm thinking, what should I say? And so when they announced it, they announced your name rather than mine. But as they started to announce it, and the winner of the most valuable player is, and I started to get up, and I got about 3/4 way, enough for everyone in the room to see me. They didn't say my name; they said somebody else's, and it was like.
You were already walking?
No.
You were
just getting up.
3/4 way at least out of the chair, high enough where, what the hell's Mencini doing? It just.
So you stood and started cheering. All right, hey, way to go, Joe! No, wasn't that? You're like,
that was kind of embarrassing.
That's when ELO started playing.
That's right.
Man. All right, gentlemen, I declare your answers to the lightning round questions to be completely acceptable to the judges. Is there anything else that you wish I would ask you? Is there anything that you would like to get out to the universe? Is there anything you're working on? I can just keep babbling here. Just a good catch-all question to you. Anything you would want to talk about before we sign off?
Parting words, Jack? Parting words of wisdom?
Boy.
No? All right.
He'll say it, but not so anyone could hear it.
We're reflecting earlier on about our partnership of 17 years. That's longer than most relationships last. Yeah. And we've never had a big fight or anything or disagreement. You mentioned about being comfortable, being uncomfortable. We have those kind of discussions all the time. And my wife will look at stuff and see an agenda. She's like, "What's that for?" "Oh, Jack and I are talking." "You're going to talk about that stuff?" I go, "Well, yeah, why wouldn't we talk about that stuff?" Right? I go, I'm thinking about it, he's thinking about it, so we're talking about it, right? Not like he doesn't know, I don't know. Like, it's okay, we'll talk about things. So I think a big key for us is we've been able to have those kind of very direct and honest discussions with each other about what's kind of going on. And the beauty of a partnership we've seen, and we've seen this with a lot of other partnerships too, is when you have a good partnership, it helps to share the burdens, which are tremendous when you own a company. But also the celebrations and the victories are that much more greater because you're able to share it together. And that's been a key, I think, to our success is having this partnership. Because we've met a lot of coaches that are singular coaches, and we have no idea how they go about doing it.
Right.
This partnership's been key for us to make sure it's been very, very successful.
One of my questions was going to be whether one of you is good cop and one of you is bad cop.
Depends on the situation.
Yeah.
Or is it more of a question?
I was going to guess you were bad cop, Jack, and
That's
you were
right.
good cop, Adam. But you're saying it goes back and forth.
No. He's 90% of the good cop.
That's usually
I'm the
the
bad
case.
cop. Using disc explains all that. I never knew why. I do now, but without disc, I couldn't answer that with authority like I do now.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I believe so strongly, guys, that the relationships that you make and that you make last are anyone's biggest asset, more than anything that you can build or buy or sell. Right. I think that's why humans are put on the earth, is to live and grow together. And you're 17 years. That's 3 years longer than my marriage. My marriage lasted 14 years, 11 of which were good years. So I commend you on that friendship and that partnership. That's rarefied air right there. Folks, if you've listened this far, it is because you are married to Jack or Adam. So, ladies, thank you for listening. Or you are their children. You got grandkids, Jack?
I do.
All right.
Boys. Mm-hmm.
All right. You guys are listening probably. Thank you for listening this far. Or you are one of the other many listeners who are continuing down this little radio journey with me. So thank you for listening as long as you have. Do me a favor. Go to MaximumVP.com and check out Adam and Jack's organization. And I can tell you that if you don't have a coach, as I said earlier, you're fooling yourself. This is what boggles my mind, and this was the eye opener for me. Tiger Woods had a coach. LeBron James has a coach. Bill Gates had a coach. Why a business owner would not get a coach defies logic to me. You certainly can't go wrong with Jack and Adam, but get somebody to get out of your own head, to talk through your plans with, to tell you that you're crazy, to tell you that you are that you've got a blind spot that you haven't been thinking about, to create plans with you. So do that. And then when you're done doing that, look at whatever device you are listening to this show on, and you're going to find some way to rate this show. And I want you to do that and tell us what you think. I hope you like it. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy, before you guys walked in the room, I mentioned that I do this largely for selfish reasons, because I really enjoy talking to smart people and learning from them. And I definitely learned a lot today. So Jack, Adam, thank you very much for sharing your time with us.
Thank you, Alex.
Thanks for having us, Alex.
This was
Enjoyed
a lot
it.
of fun.
Thank you, folks. We will see you next time.
We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we thank you for listening. And remember to check out the Gertzberg Law Firm. Whether you are starting, running, growing, or transitioning a business, or if you need to create or update your wills, trust, or estate plan, our team will give you an incredible level of personalized attention and a passionate commitment to meet your objectives. We are veteran-owned, and our award-winning lawyers have the highest ranking from Super Lawyers and Avo. We have also recently received the coveted Weatherhead 100 Upstarts Award for a second year in a row, and we are among the first Ohio business law firms to offer our clients a non-billable alternative on every single matter we handle for them, and opt out of the billable hour. What we are most proud of, though, are the many things our clients rely on us for. We successfully defend them in court, but we also help them avoid the courtroom with our Cover My Six service. We protect their assets through good estate and succession planning, and we assist our clients in many non-legal business services like recruiting and business development. We want our clients to feel confident in their choices and to help them resolve any issues or potential problems quickly and efficiently so they can get back to what they love, running their businesses. More than just litigators, we are trusted advisors, problem solvers, and growers of businesses. Let us help you and your company. Call us or find us online to learn more. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time.